suspension. So the colloidal dispersions are micro heterogeneous disperse systems. They are the very small in size. These disperse systems are in the range of 1 nanometer to 0.5 micrometer and cannot be separated under the gravity because they are having a particle size less than 5 microns. They will be having a Brownian movement. Because of that movement, they travel as they like. That is the reason they will be moving against the gravity. So you don't find any sedimentation in the case of colloidal dispersions because of their particle size. For example, aqueous dispersion of a natural polymers, whatever we have got like acacia, tragacanth, and gelatin solutions which you might have prepared in dispensing farm laboratory, and gelatin you might have used in microbiology. And similar manner, you have got a colloidal ion dextran injection that are present in the colloidal in range. Whereas the coarse dispersions, what we have completed, they are the heterogeneous, not micro or nano. They are present in the macro disperse systems, in which the dispersed phase particles are larger than the 0.5 micron. And the concentration of the dispersed phase also more when compared to colloidal dispersions. They will be exceeding even 20%. Example, what we have already studied, pharmaceutical emulsions and suspensions. In both the cases, the similarity is both are dispersions. That is the reason they are heterogeneous. They are not the homogeneous. That is the one. So both are heterogeneous systems. That is one. But the major difference is size. Colloidal dispersions where the particle size range is from 1 nanometer to 0.5 micrometer, whereas coarse dispersions having a size more than 0.5 micrometers. This is actually the making a difference of the properties which we are going to observe now, which is distinctly observed in colloidal dispersions, but it is not present with regular pharmaceutical emulsions and suspensions. If somebody is absent, if you are not able to understand the topic, you can interrupt me and ask as and when if you are not able to understand any concept, so that we can see that again back and go further. Reason is that if you don't understand now, it is difficult to read alone in your home. The reason may be either you have got a connectivity problem or some pauses may be present. That gap may create problem to understand. In those cases, you can interrupt me and ask your query and you can get clarified. So one more thing I am telling you that these video lectures are posted to your Google Classroom and you can access them in the Google Classroom, and it will be present in the drive also, so that you can see at your wish in a particular point if you are not able to understand and go back and watch the video also. If you are not finding still a gap is existing, you can write to me in the WhatsApp also, or unmute yourself and ask me so that I can clarify it. These topics are very important for your GATE and your sessional exams and your term end examinations. So in the GPAT, these questions are repeatedly going to come in physical pharmaceutics in the pharmaceutics section of your portion of your GPAT syllabus. That is the reason. If you are not able to get assimilated, you better to ask and get clarified now only. What is the major difference which you are able to find? There is a shape of the size of the particles which are present in the colloidal dispersions are very small, which are less than 0.5 micron. So 1 nanometer to 500 nanometers, they are existing it. Most of the times, the characteristics of the colloidal dispersions are based on the shape of the colloidal particles. Because their shapes, their behavior will also be varying. They may form sediment also sometimes. So let us see what the shapes which we are going to have in colloidal dispersions. It can be ranging from sphere, exactly it is a spherical in nature in case of suspension, and globule in the case of emulsion. Even the heterogeneous phase may be a liquid which is also present in the colloidal range, and it is existing in the globule form, that is also going to have near to sphere. Another shapes which includes rods, small short rods, roulette ellipsoids, that is rugby-like ball shaped, which is elongated oval in shape. Oblate ellipsoid, that is like a discus and flattened surfaces. Sometimes it is just like a flakes, where the thin and bigger in nature. In the case of oval, you are going to have a little bit thicker, and in the spherical, you have got a circular surface. Whereas it is ranging to the long rods and threads also. Sometimes it will be loosely colloidal threads like in DNA, what you are observing. Like that also it will be existing. In addition to that, sometimes they will be existing as a branched threads. Just like your plant, it is getting branched. So the particles are getting different shapes. Because of because of these shapes, you are having wide variations in your properties. What the properties that are these shapes are going to get affecting your colloidal dispersions are flowability. The flow which you are going to observe will be varied based on the particles we have got in the colloidal dispersion. Another one is the sedimentation. So the third parameter is osmotic pressure, and the fourth one is pharmacological action. Because they are existing in varied shapes, they will be having differences in their blockage in the capillaries, and they may be getting different variations in their effects based on their shapes. Because the variations are in the shapes, it will cause a different property. What we have already discussed, the four properties which will be getting affected. Because of that reason, we are going to see their shapes in the electron microscopy, because they will not be able to seen by regular microscope. Whatever we have got a visible light microscope, they will be seen in the electron microscope only. Now we will be having, after having a definition and the variations in the colloidal dispersions and difference from its quartz dispersions, we are now entering into the types of colloidal systems. Generally, you will be asked in 2 marks question. There will be 3 types. One is lyophilic colloid, another one is lyophobic colloid, the third one is association colloid. So this classification is based on the interaction between the dispersed phase and the dispersed medium, that is a continuous phase. And these systems are majorly 2 types, and the third type is association colloids. What is this lyophilic means? They are solvent loving. When dispersed medium is water, we call these as a hydrophilic colloids. If other than water is present, we name it as a lyophilic colloid. Another one is a lyophobic colloid, that is solvent hating, and you don't find any molecular level. You are finding a particulate system permanently, and it won't form as a solution in the case of solvent hating systems. And the third category is association colloids. They are also called as ampholytic colloids, in that there will be 2 portions in the particle. One portion dissolves in the water, another portion insoluble in water. So one portion is hating the solvent, another portion is loving the solvent. Sometimes it will be having an association like a Zwitter ion. They will be having both the charges was anion and cation. So they will be having, depending upon their pH, their behavior will also be varied. So because of this classification, we will be having a different procedures to prepare them based on this classification, and we are employing the methodologies, and based on their preparation methods and these types of colloid, we are going to have a different properties. That is actually the sole portion of this particular class we are going to have, and this is only the dealt in the first unit of your syllabus. First, we will see the differences between the lyophilic colloids and lyophobic colloids. Colloidal particles have a greater affinity for the dispersion medium in the case of lyophilic, because they love the solvent. they will be having affinity, and they are the polymer, or it is a gum-like material what you are using like acacia triacanth and gelatin, they will be dissolved in the solvent because of their affinity. Whereas in the leophobic colloids, colloidals have the little affinity for the dispersion medium. That is the reason they are getting suspended. Owing to their affinity for the dispersion medium, the molecules disperse spontaneously to form the colloidal solution with each, whereas material does not disperse spontaneously, and hence leophobic colloids are solutions are prepared by the dispersion method or condensation method. What are these two methods? Why we are going to use, and how? What is the difference between these two methods? We'll see in the next slide. These colloids are reversible, means you can make it as a solution form also, we can make it as a dispersion form also. Even in the solution form also, you are going to call it as a colloid, because even though they are getting solubilized, because of their molecular weight, it is in the range of 1 nanometer to 0.5 micrometers, which you have got 500 nanometers. In the bigger molecular site polymers are present, their behavior not like a solution which are transparent in nature. We will be having a colloidal which are little bit hazy in nature. So you may get the doubt that when they are solubilized, it is forming as a solution, then why are calling it as a leophilic colloid? When solvent is being loved by the particle, it should dissolve. Of course, it will be dissolving because the molecule is having a larger size. The size of the molecule is in the range of colloidal region. That is the reason we are calling them as a colloid. Because they are dissolved in the water or solvent, we are calling it as a lyophilic because they love the solvent. Whereas these colloids of the lyophilic in nature, irreversible in nature, and they don't form as a solution, and they will be dispersed as a suspension only irreversibly. They won't come back. Viscosity of the dispersion medium increased greatly by the presence of leophobic colloidal particles if you are adding them. Viscosity of the dispersion medium may not greatly increases by the presence of the leophilic colloidal in this particular case. So you are adding that, that, and you are not going to get much affected in the second case. It will have the effect because you have got a dispersion. The suspension is present. It will add its contribution of concentration into that, so it enhances. Whereas when you are adding it, it will not be going to have a much contribution. If you are seeing any topic in rheology, you will be able to understand how this particulate matter which will affect the viscosity of your liquid, especially in the case of dilatant flow. You will be able to understand. The dispersions are stable generally in the presence of electrolytes. They may be salted out by the high electrolyte concentrations of very soluble electrolytes if you are using at higher concentrations. So in the lower concentration, they will be having a charge, and that charge repel each other, they will be having a stabilization. But when you are adding higher electrolytes, they takes the solvent and they get dissolved in that solvent and precipitate the previous material. So that will be having a problem of salting out. Whereas the leophobic colloids, they are unstable in the presence of even small concentration of electrolytes because they will be having neutralization of the charge getting attracted, and they will be repulsive forces is reduced. As we have already seen in the flocculated suspension, you are getting destabilization and you are getting a flux. Similarly, they will also be having unstable in nature when they are present in the presence of electrolytes, because these electrolytes neutralizes the zeta potential and making to region of a charge which is lesser than your repulsive force. So van der Waals forces of attraction are dominating it. They form destabilized systems. So this is a little bit appearing little bit better later, and you will be able to come back to this slide little bit later so that you can understand and correlate each concept with these differences. Dispersed phase consists generally of large organic molecules such as gelatin, acacia, lying within colloidal range. Whereas in the case of lyophobic colloids, dispersed phase is ordinarily consists of inorganic particles, because this is the inorganic particles which are like a gold and the silver, which you have got iron dextron. In that iron is inorganic in nature, so they will be forming as a lyophobic colloids. They won't form as a solution. This you are going to get in the exam in 5 marks question. Repeatedly you are going to get these differences, which are going to make different types of colloids, and we are going to prepare them depending upon what type of drug we are using and what type of excipient we are handling. Based on that, we are going to have these two types of the colloid made. So these preparation approaches we will be seeing now. So first we will be looking at the lyophobic colloids, because lyophilic colloids will not be any problem. It is just like a simple solution what you are adding and to a solvent, and you are stirring it, they will be getting dissolved with ease spontaneously. They form the colloid without any problem. So lyophilic colloids are as good as you are making of your solution, whereas lyophobic colloids are prepared by two methods. One is dispersion method, another one is condensation method. So dispersion method and the condensation method, whenever we are going to use, which type of method is better for to prepare the colloid is the question. So just we will be seeing, what is these two differences, so that we will be able to understand which method we are going to use it. So most of your seniors will also be taking one of these methods in your pharma projects. And in fact, you can also use these systems in your 4th year project in BPharmacy itself, because they are in the nano range, because everything we are speaking now is a nanoparticles, nano in nature, and everything is miniaturization of regular what we have got. So these methods have got a wide exploration in targeting, like cancer, humor. So we are going to adopt a specific method depending upon our purpose. First we will see dispersion method. This method involves the breaking of the larger particle into the particles of colloidal dimensions. So what we are doing here nothing but a size reduction. Size reduction you already learned in the engineering. We are taking a bigger particles and making them into a smaller by using a size reduction equipment. So the breakdown of coarse material may be affected by the use of colloidal mill. We know that each colloidal mill has got one stator, another one is a rotor. There will be a milli-inches of gap between them. That gap is going to create a size reduction and making the output. So second method is ultrasonic treatment in the presence of stabilizing agent will also be there. In the ultrasonic treatment, we are going to use a bath sonicator and probe sonicator that creates ultrasonic waves. That sonic waves, they create the flaw, then convert the flaw into crack. Crack will be further deepened to break. So we have already seen that type of behavior in our size reduction. So in the colloidal mill, we are going to have the similar type, and chipping will also be taking place. So such methodology, which is taking, we are starting from the top and larger and coming down to smaller to the desired range. It means we are starting with a micron size to nano sized particles to get a colloidal dispersion. So this is actually called as a dispersion method. Another one is condensation method. This is actually called as a bottom-up approach. We are starting with solution and increasing the size of molecule to bigger and to form a particle. In this method, colloidal particles are formed by the aggregation of smaller particles such as molecule. We are using the concept called as aggregation. The smaller molecule which are completely appearing as a transparent, they are solubilized. Now they are getting precipitated as a bigger. It means we are starting with zero bottom and increasing its size to higher level. This is actually called as a condensation method. These two methods are used. You will be getting in the 5 marks questions in the sessional and your term examinations. You are got specifically these two methods are applicable for the lyophobic colloids only, not lyophilic, because lyophilic, when you are adding the material that is required to be made as a salt colloid in the water. They love the water, that is solvent loving. Because of that reason, they spontaneously form the colloid without much difference in the bottom up approach or top to bottom approach. That is, don't require there. This involves the high degree of the initial supersaturation when you are making it is a solution, and this is just like the second method. Condensation is a your crystallization method, what you already studied in the physical pharmaceutical engineering laboratory, where you are having a formation of supersaturation solution, and then you are going to have a creation of the nuclei and growth of the nuclei, and that the nuclei is grown to till region of your colloidal region, that is 1 nanometer to 0.5 micrometer. So the supersaturation can be brought by using a change in the solvent or by the chemical reaction in the condensation methodology. So the change in the solvent, for example, if sulfur is dissolved in alcohol, it will form as a solution. But when this concentrated solution is poured into the excess of water, so sulfur is insoluble in water, it will get precipitated. Because of that concentration, and you are going to have a wide range of your precipitate size will be formed. So this will be used to make a condensation approach to prepare a hydrophobic colloid. Many small nuclei form in the supersaturated solution, and they will be rapidly growing to the colloidal solution. If the saturated solution of the sulfur is in the acetone, they are poured into the hot water, then also you will be going to get precipitate of the sulfur after evaporation of your solvent acetone and leaving the colloidal dispersion of the sulfur. This is the method by the changing the solvent. The second approach in the condensation method you are going to use is chemical reaction. Say for example, you are using a colloidal silver, preparing a colloidal silver iodide by reacting a dilute solution of silver nitrate with potassium iodide. Both potassium iodide and silver nitrate are soluble in nature, and we take the solutions, these solutions are getting mixed. So silver nitrate will be forming a silver iodide, and potassium nitrate is formed. Potassium nitrate is soluble in nature, but silver iodide is insoluble in nature. So you are going to get as a precipitate. Initially the reagent silver nitrate and potassium iodide are soluble in nature. When you are mixing, they are getting precipitated by the chemical reaction, nothing to do with the here solvent. If the solution of another example, we are mixing ferric chloride, it is boiled with excess of water, produces the hydrated ferric oxide. So the solubilized ferric chloride will be formed as a ferric oxide by the hydrolysis, and it will be formed as a colloidal solution. This type of concept will be used in the preparation of dextran solution, iron dextran solution. So now we have prepared a hydrophobic colloid. We know that hydrophilic colloids are present and which will be requiring just spontaneously, not much problem. And we have left with one more is an association colloid. That association colloid is also going to form as a spontaneity, and there will not be any issue. So now in the hydrophobic colloid, when the colloidal particles are present, some of the soluble solutions are present as a electrolytes. They require to be removed to purify that particular hydrophobic colloid. It should not contain initial reagents what we are going to add. That will act as a impurity. So to purify the colloid, we are going to use different methods. So one of that method is a dialysis. So when the colloid solution is poured, it contains electrolytes. In the previous case, we have got electrolyte in the case of example of silver nitrate and potassium iodide. We are getting a potassium nitrate as a electrolyte, which tend to be destabilizing it later onwards if you are leaving that. So we need to remove them so to make a pure colloid. So one methodology is dialysis. At equilibrium, a colloidal material is retained in the compartment A in the dialysis membrane, and whereas the colloidal, I will be showing a figure so that you will be able to understand easily. If you see here, in the starting of your dialysis method, the dialysis membrane is getting separating your regular solvent and your colloidal dispersion. So the dialysis membrane is nothing but a semi-permeable membrane. It is containing some pores. The pores will allow the electrolytes, but will not allow the colloidal particles. Because they are allowing the electrolytes, they will be crossing the semi-permeable membrane, entering into the solvent and coming to equilibrium. It means we are removing the electrolytes and leaving only colloid particles in it. So this is the way which you can be able to separate them. You may be asking, we can filter them. It is also a filtration like methodology only, but we are using this dialysis membrane of a specific pore size. When we are passing through that, because of the change in the concentration of these electrolytes, they are getting diffused and transmitted through the semi-permeable membrane and entering into the free solvent. This is after at equilibrium, we are going to get a reduction in the electrolytes in the colloidal solution. Now, if you see and go back, at the equilibrium, the colloidal particles is retained in the compartment A, whereas the subcolloidal particles, that is lesser than the colloidal range, is distributed equally on the both sides of the membrane. By continuously removing the liquid in the, that is solvent in the compartment B, it is possible to apply in the colloidal material in the compartment A, which is free from the subcolloidal contaminant like electrolytes. This process of dialysis may be hastened by stirring and pumping so that to maintain the high concentration gradient, which creates the diffusion of the molecules across the membrane. By renewing the outer liquid time to time, we are circulating the liquid, so we are creating the equilibrium to breaking equilibrium to create a concentration gradient. This makes the purification of colloid. Second thing is a ultrafiltration. We have already studied in pharmaceutical engineering, we have got a filtration. In that we have got a filtration medium and we have got a slurry, which is a mixture which is present at the top, we are getting a filtrate in the bottom. In this case also, in a similar manner, we have got a ultrafiltration medium in this. It will not be passing the colloidal particle, but it will pass only the solution particles which are already got dissolved in the solvent. So the colloidal dispersion can pass through the ordinary filter because the pore size is bigger in nature. In the regular filter, what we have used previously. If the filter paper is impregnated with colloidin is nothing but a syrupy solution of nitrocellulose, the pore size is decreasing. When the pore size is decreasing, and you can be able to transfer only electrolytes, not the colloidal particles. So such modified filters are called as ultrafilters. By applying the pressure at the top and applying the vacuum in the suction in the bottom downstream, we are removing the solvent and the small particles or electrolytes and leaving the colloidal particles retained above the medium. So this process is actually referred as a ultrafiltration. Just we will see the diagram, you will be able to easily assimilate it. In this particular diagram, if you see here, you have got similarly to your filter, primitive filter, what you have learnt in previous year SEM, you have got at the top, the solution is containing electrolytes that is fed to your filter. That filter is containing impregnated with colloidin, so particle size, aperture size is very narrow and opening is very, very narrow. And it will allow the colloidal particles are present and bring down the electrolytes at the bottom along with the solvent. This approach also purify your colloidal dispersion and removing dissolved electrolytes and making it. You may get the question, sir, why do you want to purify this colloid? If you are using any drug, your drug is particularly that colloidal material and raw material is toxic in nature, you don't want to keep them. So you need to remove it. Then only we can inject it to the patient body for drug targeting or targeting to any particular organ or a tumor. So this approach of purification is important. So you will be having a purification as a part of your preparation method. Sometimes you will be asked in the 5 marks question, write the purification methods for the hydrophobic colloids or preparation method for the hydrophobic colloids. And they may ask in 10 marks, A as a purification, preparation, B as a purification. So third one is electrodialysis. What is the difference between the dialysis and electrodialysis is, if you are applying the dialysis simply without having any charge, then what will happen? It takes longer time. So in the dialysis unit, the movement of the ions across the membrane can be very longer and it can be speeded up by applying the electric current. on both the sides of your semi-permeable membrane. This electric current through the electrode induces in the solution. So the electric potential increases the rate of movement of ionic impurities through a dialysing membrane, and so provide the more rapid means of purification. So by applying the electric potential, so you are increasing the rate, but you are not going to change the quality of material you are going to get output, because pore size is same only, but you are making the process faster. So the dialysis membrane allows small particles ion to pass through the colloidal size particles, and in the case of your blood dialysis, it will not allow to hemoglobin to pass, but it will allow the electrolytes like sodium chloride, urea to pass through it. It will be happening outside your body, electrodialysis very fast. The picture which you are seeing here, if you see the semi-permeable membrane on either side of them, you have got a colloid, which is a solvent which is having cubed with electrolytes, electrodes. So the anode and cathode are present. They attract the opposite sized electrolytes, and they will be making it faster to get removed and increasing the speed of this particular process. This is actually the advantage of electrodialysis, that is third method of purification. Now, we know that hydrophilic colloids are spontaneously prepared just like a solution. There is no issue, and you can prepare it by adding directly to a solvent. We know the hydrophobic colloids, how to prepare and how to purify them. We are going to see, and now association colloid, that is the third type of colloid. What is this and how to prepare them, and we are going to see now. We know that surface active agents have two distinct regions. That is the reason they are acting at the interface. That is reducing the surface tension also. Sorry. So the surface active agents, they have got two distinct regions. One is opposing the solution affinities within the same molecule. They are having a one head is called as a hydrophilic in nature, and they have got a tail which is hydrophobic in nature. That is a oil soluble in nature. That is the reason it is called as the amphiphile. That is the reason it is also known as amphiphilic colloid. So these amphiphilic colloids, not like your previous cases, they have got both lyophilic, lyophobic regions in their molecule itself. When present in the liquid medium at the lower concentration, these amphiphils exist separately in the subcolloidal size, and they form as a solution. So they are forming as a solution depending upon the solubility. As the concentration is increased, when you are adding a concentration of this surfactant is increased, and they will be getting aggregated depending upon the what solvent we are using it. Say for example, we are adding this amphiphile or this polymer or surface active agent into your solvent. The solvent is water, then all water heads will be coming facing outside, and tiles will be facing inside. It will form as a globule, or this is actually an aggregate will be formed. So that aggregate is in the range of 50. It is going to contain 50 or more monomers. That is each molecules 50, around 50 are present. This globule is actually that aggregate is called as a micelle. This is present in the range of 50 angstrom units, that is equivalent to 5 nanometers. So we have got a definition of colloidal particle from 1 nanometer to 500 nanometers. So this is also a colloidal dispersion only. So that is the reason we are calling it as the association colloids. So the concentration of the monomer at the micelles are formed is termed as critical micellar concentration, because when you are adding initially small concentration, it is getting preparing a solution, but you are not getting any colloid. But when your concentration is increased, so the surfactant concentration at particular concentration, you are starting getting a aggregates. That aggregate is creating a micelle. So that micelle at what concentration you are going to get is called as a CMC, critical micellar concentration. Don't get confused your suspending agent CMC, that is sodium CMC, sodium carboxymethyl cellulose. But this CMC is critical micellar concentration. So the number of monomer that aggregate to form a micelle is known as aggregation number of micelle. In this example, what you have seen in the top, we have got 50 monomers. That is the reason aggregation number is 50 for it. And its size is depending upon your individual monomer molecular weight. So we are going to have a micelle formed. See this particular diagram, you will be able to understand. We are keeping one surface active agent in the water. Initially, when it is present, both the heads are present inside the water and it will be forming as a solution. But when your concentration is approaching, around a certain number of monomers are approaching to a particular CMC, all tails which are present, they will be facing outside, because they are heating the water, so they will be facing inside and forming as a micelle. But around them, they are having a polar head that is facing water. So this polar head which are facing in the water, which will be creating a micelle formed, and this micelle has got a specific number. That number, depending upon their aggregation number, they will be forming. After that number of molecule concentration is approaching, they will be forming as a micelle, and they will be getting increasingly taking the similar concentration, and the micelles are keep on forming. And we have got a different charged species, that is hydrophilic heads, like anion, cationic. They are the charged species, but they are soluble in water, so they are facing outside in this particular case. And sometimes you will be having a non-ionic also. Sometimes you have got a ampholytic, that is both your cationic and anion is present in one molecule itself, like your protein and amino acid. You have got amino group and carboxyl group. Amino group is in a positive charge and carboxylic CO has got negative charge. Both the charges are present in one molecule itself. Sometimes you have got a cationic surface active agent and anionic surface active. Sometimes you have got zwitter ionic. So depending upon the charge in the amphiphile, they will be having a different surface active agent, and they will be forming surface active agent with different number. I hope now we are able to prepare three types of the colloid to the surface of the charged micelles. Micelles will be having a charge depending upon whether it is cationic or anionic surface active agent we are using it. So if it is a cationic surface active, we have got a plus charge. If it is anionic surface active agent, we are using a negative charge. When they are having at their surface the negative charge, they attract opposite ions like a positive ions to them. So this is actually called as a counter ions, Jason ions. This concept we have already learnt in the electrical double layer in the previous case of our dispersion also, which reduces the overall charge of the micelles, because the micelle which is formed, which is encountered counter ions, that is the reason in neutralizing the charge. So viscosity of the system increases as the concentration of the amphiphile increases, because of the micelles are increased in the number and becoming formed. So it enhances the viscosity by adding more and more concentration of your surfactants. In the aqueous solution, the CMC, that is critical micellar concentration, is reduced by the addition of electrolytes. Because when you are adding electrolytes, you are going to neutralize the charge and you are going to precipitate out your micelles, which are going to be formed. Then we are going to have that phenomena called as a salting out of it. This will be what the effect of your electrolytes on your association colloids, which we are going to observe. Because of that reason, we are going to use them in a particular concentration, which will have a repulsive force, so that you will be getting a stability more without any salting effect. Now you may get the question, why we are going to add the electrolytes? We know that electrolytes are going to cause the problem, but for the adjustment of your tonicity, some of the drug may be acting as your charged species. They will be having this effect. We need to consider that also. What is their effect on the CMC, what we are going to have, whether it is going to form a salting out effect or not, we need to see it, and we need to proceed for the preparation. Otherwise, you will not get any colloidal stable association dispersion. Association colloid will not be formed. One concept is called as a Kraft point. So this is GPAT 1. I am going to repeat in the next class also. but this one I am going to touch up and we will be stopping ending of our session. The craft point is the solubility of the surfactant. Most of the times we know that it is depending upon the temperature. Generally, as the temperature is increasing, solubility is also getting increased. So adequate concentration is required to form the micelle, because we are going to have a micelle. This micelle is having some association number. Because of that reason, we are going to have some number of your solvent, that is a surfactant molecule which is required to be present. We are going to have to form the micelles. What the craft point is defined as the temperature at which the solubility of the surfactant is equal to CMC. So your solubility, it may be a 10 mg per ml or 500 mg per ml. The CMC, critical micellar concentration, is also same. It means at that particular temperature and the concentration, CMC is same. We know that at critical micellar concentration, you are getting micelles. When micelles are formed, they will be forming as a aggregates and they are getting consumed. So your your surfactant, you are keep on going to add into your solvent, they will be getting formed as a solution, and that is the reason the at craft point the solubility increases suddenly several times. This is actually the major advantage if you want to dispense higher concentrations of such species, to take them used for the solubilizing your poorly water soluble drugs, because the poorly water soluble drugs, they will be getting dissolved in the central tile which you have got as a hydrophobic in nature, that is lipid soluble. In that, drug will be solubilized. This is excellent concept we will be using for the solubility enhancement also, and enhancement of your bioavailability. Come back to our the question of interest, which is in the GPAT, which we are going to have. What is this one? If you see this particular diagram, you have got a tile which is hydrophobic in nature, that is lipid soluble, and most of our drugs are water insoluble and they are lipid soluble. Why they are lipid soluble? Because our biological membranes are lipid in nature. So the lipid soluble drug will tend to cross better in our stomach layer. We prepare a lipid soluble moiety. So the lipid soluble moiety is having a least water solubility. When they are having a least water solubility, the drug will be present as a suspension. They cannot cross the stomach. If you want to make them cross, you need to make them solubilized. So when they are getting solubilized in a regular manner, then you are going to have a problem of diffusion through your biological membrane. That is the reason what you do. We are preparing micelles. In the micelles, we know that in the center you have got a oil phase. So the oily phase means water heating. In that, the drug will be dissolved. So it has got a dual advantage. Dissolving the drug and crossing the membrane here can be achieved, and you are entering the blood very fast. This enhancement of your diffusion through your membrane enhances the bioavailability, and it will be used to improve the bioavailability by the CMC and micellar concept. So for that purpose, depending upon our nature of that drug and your system, what you are using as a surfactant, we need to choose either zwitterionic or anionic or cationic surfactant, or combination of them we are going to use. Based on this particular concept, we have made one point called as a craft point. In the craft point, what is happening? We are having a concept of solubility at the craft point. So at a particular temperature and the concentration, the craft point is the concentration at which the solubility is equal to TMC, that is critical micellar concentration. So when the CMC and the solubility both are same, when the you are approaching the solubility, critical micellar concentration is reached, micelles are getting formed. When the micelles are getting formed, whatever the surfactant you are pouring into the solvent, they will be getting taken and getting dissolved by taking that number, that is called as aggregation number. That many surfactant molecule, they will be getting entered into your solvent phase and making it enhancement of solubility by the several times. So because the micelles are formed, the micelles has got a specific advantage of polar head outside, internal non-polar core. In the core, we are solubilizing the drug and we are enhancing the water solubility and crossing the lipoidal membrane, because the drug is present inside the lipid, so they can cross easily also. This concept of craft point is very much useful to load more and more drugs in the micelles. So the micellar solubilization concept, which will be used for our project, if you want to choose in the 4th year, keep in your mind, you can use it and you can complete your B Farm project by application.